Hello ladies and gentlemen, let me just put on some nice music for you before we start. Some smooth jazz that is going to gently tickle your soul and put you in the right mood for the LEC rundown. Oh, that hits just right. There we go. Week 2 has started of the LEC. Damn, watching LEC after watching two fantastic series, both in the LEC and LPL, was quite the whiplash. I have to say that I was quite disappointed with the level of the games today. But at least we can take the chance to, note that a lot of the things that I called in the LEC rundown was indeed true and accurate. Of course, it's just one day of BO1s. Maybe I'm wrong tomorrow. We shall see. SK versus BDS. SK lost this one. They banned Maokai, Yumi, Poppy. Poppy Prior seems to be an interesting one. I've seen some Poppy 1, 2, 3 bans, and I thought that, oh, they're just banning Poppy to force the vibe ban and then be able to first pick something else. Maybe this is the type of move. But it turns out Poppy seems to be cooking up some steam. We also saw a Poppy first pick here from Vitality. We also saw the Poppy from Mad here on 5. And another Poppy here on 3 for FNATIC, Into Divide and Zeri. So there's that. SK vs BDS, the first pick LeBlanc. I think that Static Shiv, honestly, we haven't seen a team yet in Europe actually execute on the Static Shiv appropriately. I think besides Humanoid, no one really stands out to me as a good Static Shiv user. Maybe we have to ask ourselves if this is something that is more prone to be good in solo queue. But I sincerely doubt it. I think just the main thing is that I feel like teams are not giving LeBlanc the time to actually push side and generate leads through having pressure in two places at the same time. I think often you need to just give up space and allow LeBlanc to push neutral waves and push deep in and let her group. And in those windows you poke away, you chip away, and then you return and do the same. And you basically create a circumstance where you pretty much lock the enemy solo laners down, because it's very tough to gank LB. We've seen an answer in the Tristana, which I like a lot. Right? I like the Tristana into it, because the idea if LeBlanc W's forward, you also W in with Tristana, you hit and you try to reset your E and you go for lethal. You buy Static Shift to match the push, and you also, of course, look for just lethal with Navori Quick Play Bite. And for Static Shift is something that we saw, I believe, Chovy play, and also Night play. Kind of like that, especially if your team is ready to play like Rumble Top, things like this. Nevertheless, LeBlanc gets first pick. Zeri, Sejuani, Wukong, Renekton gets locked in. Renekton is Denial here on 3. They go for Lulu and they secure a very strong bottom side. And you can see that BDS, after a very, very rough start, they just went back to their own personal basics, which has been the recipe of Nuke playing very specific set champs. We remember the Syndra, we remember the Azir, and we also remember the Casio, Nuke classics. And then just a tank top that basically just cements the comp there for BDS. Then already, these guys are going to play to secure bottom side, and then they're going to pivot that and transition that into a game where BDS can enact their accurate macro. I say accurate macro because I feel like they don't make a lot of mistakes when they're ahead, and I think that's a strength. Sure, they can squeeze potentially more, and I think there's room for them to be more accurate, but I think starting from the point of making less mistakes is something that works very well in LEC. I think that when they're playing against, if they for some reason play against international opposition, I think this is where they will face the biggest challenge in terms of how people can drain you macro-wise if you over-posture for dragons and over-prepare for dragons, because I feel like in the LPL and the LCK, they, in preparation for Drake, they prepare the whole map rather than just the area around Drake, and I think that's where BDS can improve. but it's something that will take them so far in the LEC, and probably it'll be enough to qualify them to Worlds, but they follow the recipe. Looking at this game in terms of gameplay, because that's what you do when you look at game. Let's just fast forward a little bit. In this game, somehow, usually when you play a jungler, usually in most cases you feel like, oh, if I'm ganking LeBlanc just feels like shit. I don't know how this wave position happened. This just looks like Certus pushed to, crashed to, and he played in a very strange way. W's forward to last hit the cannon, and then Shio just finds this level 3 gank. Certus doesn't flash the Sejuani Q for some reason, and just dies while burning flash. It's an absolute disaster. He gets Kirche shards on his base with a pink ward, which is, you know, okay-ish because he got the cannon. But all in all, like, dying like this is very rough. In a lot of cases when you're playing Static Shift LB, I think if the enemy mid laner gets stronger bases than you in the shape of Lost Chapter, this is where maybe you could bleed. But I think that's just true regardless if you're playing Static Shift LeBlanc or other LeBlanc, you're just behind the lane, right? Because I don't think necessarily Kirche Shard is a bad lane item, because you can just play with the trade pattern where you just W to the side and then Q auto and W back, and you can chip away and target the enemy's HP pool. We fast forward a little bit this game. SK managed to squeeze a little kill on bottom side, burn some sums back and forth. They managed to I just want to look at this top dive here. Not sure really what Irrelevance is doing there, proxying. I'm just trying to find the moment where K'Sante actually got the death. Maybe it happened earlier. This is the moment. Here Irrelevant just had a clean solo kill on Adam. I'm not so sure here about, you know, how Adam performances feels like it's been ratted down. In this game he had some good moments, but being in such conditions is a strange thing, and Irrelevant just kills himself here, right? Like, obviously he can just survive. He can either E through to hit him to follow the flash, and then flash out, or he could have just E'd out, like he just E's through the turret because he doesn't understand that he had lethal, you know? And then later, the fact that Irrelevant proxies the wave gives K'Sante like a clean base on Iceborne Gauntlet. He TPs into top, and BDS secure the second Drake of the game. I think this game was completely decided when it came to this Herald fight, which is the final nail in the coffin. LeBlanc with Mercs is finally finishing Static Shiv, but she's basically posturing for a fight here. In reality, as she's posturing for this fight, it's like, once again, it's like, if you have Static Shift LB without AP, the whole point is that you want to put yourself ahead of the curve. You have to consider positions like this if you're playing Static Shift LB, if it makes more sense to TP back into bot and push and hit, and then play with the fact that the enemy doesn't have TP. But in a lot of the games, Static Shift LB is finding themselves in positions where the waves are neutral and they are finding themselves in teamfight situations. We take a look at this situation here. BDS are pulling the Rift Herald out and pushing to one direction. They have a ward on this spot, and this is the only potential like angle that BDS's position can be undermined. So they have good spatial awareness here, which is good. They are the comp that they want the enemy to enter into them. Dos misses his Q. And then here, I think that Adam finds a beautiful angle here where he just catches extra kick. I think also relevant here what you do here with Renekton to like give an opportunity. I think at some point you have to just consider, like, if you want to break the position here, then Renekton just needs to fucking E, and they just need to fucking all press their buttons and all in and go. But instead what we see is that this DOS is using Q, Relevant is pushing forward, and Adam is just Q3 stacked already on Renekton, and he accomplished nothing. If you want to break this position, you need to look for angles around the pit here. Maybe Wukong undermines a position like that. Maybe you look for something else. But I think inherently what you want to do is LB just TP's back bot, push the wave, hit this, and when the enemy takes Herald, you know, you just make sure that you push mid. Top wave already got pushed in all the way by Renekton, and I think that's how you build an advantage. I think Static Shiv inherently is not super strong in team fights. but it's the gold you're supposed to generate and the pressure you're supposed to generate through the item is supposed to give you, you know, the edge. Like if you walk into a fight and this is the comparison, this is terrible. Like this LeBlanc is completely useless in comparison to the Syndra in my mind. So this is the nail in the coffin. Now K'Sante conditions are way too strong, Zeri conditions are also great, and this game will end in no time. We have the final fight. As SK are just trying to enter the position through one way. Celtics also had to flash and he's chipping away at the Sejuani's HP pool, but it's not really working. BDS are playing a very simple front to back when they're just killing the front line slowly. Adam flashes on Celtics and they manage to clear the game. SK showing a lot of growing pains, at least they got a kill on bottom side. Irrelevant made mistakes in lane. I think in terms of the teamfight execution and Celtics on the LB, it was horrible. I think it's very clear that some teams clearly shouldn't play LeBlanc because it does. I think that you need to have a lot of finesse around how you play on site, and if you don't have that, which is true for a lot of teams in the LEC, then you're not going to have a good time playing this champion. We continue. XL versus Team Heretics. XL break the win streak of Team Heretics and break their own lose streak in the process. They ban Vi, LeBlanc, Yuumi. Milio gets banned as Yuumi, Milio, or usually the trades that are happening, so blue side just set up for one ban. In this particular case, XL just first pick Maokai, Draven Sejuani is the match. Here I was surprised that they dropped AD. They dropped AD, I thought they were just going to pick Aphelios, because I think Aphelios does quite well into Draven, but nevertheless they got K'Sante Azir. They pick full comfort here. It's very evident that they're trying to simplify the composition, make it into front to back. I don't think necessarily that these champions are weak against Draven when it's showing. I think K'Sante and Azir can do super well. So I don't mind it too much as long as you feel comfortable with your lane matchup. In my mind, when I saw Xayah getting locked in here into Draven, I thought, oh, this is going to look dangerous. But of course, Xayah, Patrick, experienced Draven play, maybe knows something else here. At least in my mind, I thought, oh, playing Xayah Nautilus into Leona Draven, and enemy has Sejuani Talia. Maybe there's room for you to get in trouble. So Renekton gets picked on 3 here for Sejuani Renekton. K'Sante was already out. So this is one way you can target Team Heretics. They picked Renekton into K'Sante, which makes sense, right? The Sejuani Renekton and Renekton into K'Sante, that's a matchup. Philios gets banned, they'll go to AD carry for most cases against Draven. They ban Kai'Sa in case it's going to go mid lane, they don't want to deal with that. And also Sylas, because Maokai is locked and they're playing against Vetheo. Talia gets picked on 4, I'm not a super big fan of it. It's like, sure, you have plenty of setup with the Renekton Sejuani, but at the same time, I'm trying to think of what else I would have liked into Azir. I guess when you are already showing Sejuani, there isn't a lot of options in terms of mid laners that have decent synergy with her. Something that we saw earlier today was like a Twisted Fate. The other question is if with the Braum ban you can pick Nautilus on 4 and then you are not that weak specifically into Cleanse, because Cleanse doesn't have a lot of value against Nautilus. That could be a move where they are the ones with the Nautilus here on 4 and then 5 pick mid. And that's it. And now Xayah Nautilus gets locked in, Leona on 5. So I thought at first, wow, Xayah Nautilus into Draven Sejuani. Leona doesn't sound like it's too easy. Azir should be able to control the lane against Talia. So there's that. And then Sejuani Renekton, they are strong at top side, and they need to find ways for Talia to connect into bot. I think a big benefit for Talia, so let me show you guys here on Riftkit. So a big benefit for Talia, right, is that these waves right now, they meet at the same point. And champions with globals usually are weaker in lane. That's how Riot have kind of designed them, whether it's TF or Talia. Usually the champions that are strong in lane and have a global are very oppressive, so they usually nerf those capabilities. But now with the new wave system, I think that Talia can always hide in fog. If she hides in fog and Azir is hitting the neutral wave, you actually pressure into bot same side, and you can always make the decision to commit all the way first because Azir needs to play on the wave. Then Azir will be pressured to hard push, and then Talia catches, and all she needs to do is make sure that she has a path to step in the river. And I think this is a lot more viable in a world where you pretty much have the waves meeting at the same time, because the window that you hover is greater in the moment where the enemy needs to be on the wave, if it's neutral or it's stacking, right? That window has become greater because the enemy mid laner will start pushing later. Another good example of someone doing this super well is BDD. I think BDD does it super well. I think Knight does it super well. These are two mid laners that have really gotten a good hang of the meta. I think Yagao also does it well. It's like contesting neutral waves on mid is not necessary. If you're playing Ahri, for example, and you're sitting in this bush and your jungler is here and you're pressuring bottom at the same time as you're pressuring mid, and the enemy is nervous about hitting the wave, it's really good. But if you're hitting the neutral wave, you're not gonna find pressure bot. And this is, if you guys would learn anything from this video, I hope this is it. Because this is a very new concept that I've seen now just enact itself based off of the changes to the minions. It's a pretty decent follow-up. Alright, we talked about draft. Let's take a look at the XL game and Team Heretic's game. So Team Heretics were very inaccurate in terms of how they played. So very important when you play Draven Leona, like you need to maintain momentum, you need to stack the waves and bounce the waves really appropriately. It's like if you're stacking waves like this, you need to create scenarios where the enemy lane feels pressured. So you need to be able to double axe stack. I just want to go back and see exactly when Xayah based. Because yeah, Xayah and Nautilus are managing to crash a wave. I don't know how this is possible. They get level 3 first, or they're just that good at the game? I'm not so sure. Not so sure at all. Like Xayah and Nautilus stack 3 waves, crash them base. It's something's off here in my mind. It's like you can't thin out the wave to not make the enemy crash if you allow them to slow push. You cannot be the one contesting the wave first with 2 Draven axes. Something is off here in my mind. I think it's very strange. Sejuani is going into bottom side after finishing her bot side clear. Sejuani also... I'm gonna just show you guys the Sejuani gank on mid. I don't know what Abedage smoked here, but it's definitely not something that is a legal substance in most countries. Maybe not, you know, he should have just of course flashed to eat through rocks, and he just went in the opposite direction of where he should have gone. So it was terrible. Additionally here, Evi just dry 1v1, just burns flash. Evi gets his level up from the minion, and Evi now decides to push her forward, and now Peach just does a neat little flash maneuver and Evi dies. So this is just auto-arm superior laning, which is very strange considering Renekton should be doing quite fine in this matchup. Should be easy to stay healthy, and he should be able to win the war of attrition. YamatoCannon indeed. So we talked about it. If Draven and Leona are now stacking away, but they need the base. Sejuani is crossing into top side. I think in moments like this, if the enemy is looking to contest your Raptors, I think that you can look to threaten dive. Like if you're swinging in with the Leona, Draven, Sejuani, and you go into bot, you need to ask yourself, oh, should we be looking for a dive here to force the Maokai to act? Because if the Maokai takes Raptors and we can pressure dive on bot, it is indeed quite terrible for Maokai, of course. Raptor camp for dive bot is not that great of a trade. Driven Leona base, and this is the moment Mercer opens up on mid, and you see that his tempo together with Sejuani is not that real. He just places some vision around mid, and Mercer goes back to mid to just steal a creep, which is very strange. Never do this with support, because Xayah's decision to push becomes so damn easy when you are just masturbating to kill a melee. I don't like that at all. I think it's more important that Xayah feels threatened to be on the mid wave, you know? He just took a cannon, and Vitio just, you know, shared XP with his homie. But if the plan is to do Drake, I guess it's not that big of a deal. Just in my mind, I think if he hid himself in fog, he could have potentially pressured Xayah at the same time, and they don't need to be hitting together the Drake as much as they're doing. But it's not the end of the day, right? Because a Drake's a Drake, and it does give them plenty of value. We continue. Draven's pushing forward, they just spotted Xayah, so they know they are 3v3 in this situation. Mersa just ease, which obviously isn't the move. Sejuani in this moment, of course, did the level 3 gank mid, so she lost plenty of tempo, and she didn't clear her camps in unison. I think in this moment, right, Mersa just can't be eating like this. I think they already got the red and they came what they needed, and they need to just threaten bots and make the enemy defend, and all would be good. But with deaths like this and wave management like before, Draven loses his window of opportunity. Xayah is now going to catch a wave for free and stack one and base, and they're going to have a good position then to potentially swap for Herald. And this is a super big deal. Draven lost his pressure window. All the waves that crash into bot were simply waves that Xayah could catch, and Xayah could stack waves and then crash them into bot. But we didn't have you know, a full view on what's going on bot. It's just, if you're playing Draven and this is the outcome, usually it's losing. And in my mind, if Xayah reached 6 and Aldridge reached 6, they actually can find ways to get lethal on Draven. But if you don't find, but usually if Xayah manages to end up even against Draven in such an outcome, it truly is crazy. So yeah, Nautilus is opening on bottom side for some reason. I don't know why, he's just wasting time. He could be in top side with his team or open on mid, plain and simple. I have a mosquito on my leg, that's why I shook a little bit. Yeah, I think just Odoamne shouldn't R, and he should just take it easy. It was a well-placed W, I'd say. And in this moment, I think if he just doesn't R and he kites back, I think Evi might just die, because he had no flash. Would have been better, of course. So in this moment, right, Nautilus open on bottom side, and when they see that this play is happening because the sapling is spotting Leona, they're just pivoting into a bot side play. You see that Maokai is slow to join because he's doing wolves. Odoamne surviving here is a super big deal, and they cross into bottom side, and once again an extension of Draven just being denied waves and Xayah getting platings. So this is of course from before because of the Leona death. Because of the Leona death, the position for Xayah and Nautilus is slightly better because Xayah is first on the map and she can slow push. And Nautilus could match on Rift Herald. Let me just take a step back here and see what Xayah actually did, because it seems like Xayah just stayed with the same items that she based on from the previous base, which is perfectly fine, right? She's just stacking and crashing. And Draven base for Sheen. And now Nautilus into bot, Azir basing in Fog. I like that from Abedag. This was largely unnecessary, right? It's like there are two people showing on bot wave. And I think Nautilus here as well should be in Fog instead of hitting the bot wave. Like, why is he sharing platings with his Draven? I mean, with his Xayah is not necessary. Nautilus should just be in Fog of War, so they feel the presence of him on mid lane too. I don't like this type of play. They are looking for Veteo, who still has flash. They do flash for flash. I think that this Q usage was quite bad from Peach. We were talking about it on stream, but now when I see it again, it is quite terrible. Like, I think here he should just W him and all is good, you know? Just W and then walk through him, Q, and that's it, you know? It's a bit harder because he has mercs, but I think it is quite important to make sure that Azir actually can hit and he can reposition with Q later on. Probably they won't find lethal here anyway, because as I mentioned before, this is just a terrible play. Mercs on Talia makes it too tanky, and this just adds additional risk. So Flacket is very lucky to be in a position here where he actually gets the reset, because of course in the end Draven has nothing to do bot because he's getting completely zoned. We jump forward to some of the later parts of the game. K'Sante solo kills Renekton, which is very bad for the Renekton, of course. As we can see here, boom. And Evi has flash. Evi has flash. He doesn't flash. He's looking for some counterplay, getting rage from his ultimate, but he just dies in the end. Okay. So now at this point you have to remember that this red side composition has a Draven and Renekton and also Talia, and they are behind in the game. They are just behind in the game, and that obviously is terrible. Blue side composition scales much better. Much better. Those Renektons that we see in other games that are very, very strong, they are strong because they've been strong for the whole game and generated leads that make them a menace in fights. But this ain't it. Let's just jump forward a little bit. I think we've analyzed some of the key crucial moments in the game and what kind of transferred into a situation that is, of course, winning Patrick and XL. I think I can make the music a little bit lower. I think it's just good to have some music in the back to just not have complete silence instead of the casters. X's composition is rather streamlined to play. You just have to put saplings down and then you can look at the turn and you can just play slow and play to hit. It's an easy endeavor. I think the setup was pretty good from XL. I think that's nice, you know. I think it's important to give praise to XL what it's due. I think individually, like some of these fights, they can play a little bit better, or they can play a little bit more time and not R, right? Okay, for example, K'Sante, why is he R'ing, right? He can just play without R, and here he's the unkillable Demon King. Right here, like this is what makes, you know, a champion like K'Sante sometimes harder. Like maybe he can early on over the wall, but all in all, it's like here, if he just holds his spells and he plays on E first and then W, he's like, if you're hitting Q, if you can hit something with Q with K'Sante, you don't need to do more. Just use your spells in unison with that. If you can hit the Leona with Q, just keep hitting with Q, stack, and you're already a presence. You don't need to press R, don't need to press your W, you can take it easy. But obviously, the extension of this game is of course just a fat GG. Maokai was super fed and had so much gold in his pocket. I'm trying to find that fight that was so impressive from Patrick. Let's just see it. Let's see if I can find it. Let me scroll back a little bit. I think it was this fight. This fight that occurred. This is one. So Maokai comes from an angle, uses the root Sandstorm, and we have the TP coming in. Flacket has no cleanse, and the flash W from Maokai connects, and then the CC in. And I really like here from Patrick that he just, you know, charges in, plays aggressively and forward, flashes in. This was very nice from Patrick. I think this is, these are the type of games that, you know, people, the fans of Patrick recall these type of games, and, you know, this is what brings back faith. So this was a pretty good game from Patrick. I would give him the gold star for this one. And they're looking for the end here, but they didn't be defended. But no fear. Eventually they just spawned and they just walked it down mid, and all is good because the composition is just strong at this point. I forgot to give a gold star from the previous one. In terms of this game, I probably would just give it to the bot lane, and I'm happy that Shiu had a good game again by his standards. Koi vs FNATIC. FNATIC. Fellows LeBlanc Milio. They follow up with Yumi ban. Milio Yumi is usually just a trade ban that occurs. Javan, Malrang target, and then Nico. Vi gets banned, picked, and the enemy just slams Xayah Rakan. Xayah is a good answer into Vi, of course. But Vi is happy to play into Rakan, and sometimes you can pick bot laners that are quite strong into Xayah Rakan, like in this case. So Zeri Lulu, they are locked in, which is of course a very common answer into Xayah Rakan, and then Poppy on 3. So finally get to see the Poppy. Poppy is very strong at level 3 ganking, okay-ish into Vi, but I need to see more to kind of buy into what the hype is, because Poppy Prio has been quite high. We go into 4-5, they ban Azir, Annie, just target some of the last and classics, and then Koi does the same by banning Orianna. Orianna is something that got buffed on live, and I know that Marek Brazdalini is playing some Orianna in solo queue, but I think 13-12 is a different story. Kisante gets targeted, Oscarini won 2 nice games on the champ. Syndra gets picked on 4 as the blind, and they're keeping the Poppy flex, which is pretty neat and decent. And then Gragas, Victor gets locked in, they check to themselves, yo, Poppy into Gragas is perfectly fine, we can play that. And then we pick Wukong on 5 to just have additional CC and have something that can lock down the Zeri and do well into the Vi. I think there's a very, very standard, fair, straightforward draft. I think the trades back and forth are like even and fair. I think these are like fairly balanced drafts. We look into the game. I think with the sequence that occurred, so basically Vi did red into Q over the wall into go and steal enemy blue. I wonder here if Advien could just flash after Trimby on the all-in, like here if he just flashes after, because there's no flash. I think that he can just find lethal here, he can just pot up as he fights, and I don't think, like here they would just win, but they are not doing so. I think he could just flash after, and then I think he can, you know, I think that he could just pop potion, biscuit, like there's no way that Noah can kill, there's nothing, they don't have spells. Like here, I think Trimby is just dead. But we move on. It's also that Advien's Q is also coming up. Yeah, the key thing is Trimby burned Flash and Noah burned Ghost, and this isn't a terrible lane state, but we have to keep in mind that Xayah here has 3 potions longsword, and Comp is starting Cull and 1 potion, so his conditions here, the trade of resources here is decent for Fnatic if they can deny the crash from happening. But Wukong is now going to pattern the bottom side and notice the Vi stole of his camp, so they will get the crash here on Cannon. As they get the crash on Cannon, they should just base and then enjoy the fact that the enemy has no flash on Rakan, and there would be a good lane phase. But the extension of this, the extension of this is ugly, ladies and gentlemen. The extension of this is quite ugly. Advien misses point blank Q here, which Xayah would lose flash on. Like here, Advien, his Q is he kind of chokes it. It's like melee range. Like this needs to land, you know. Like here, he can burn Xayah's flash and maybe even get a kill, you know. As you can see, he's tanking every minute in the wave. I think also Comp maybe could be more aggressive with his flash, but maybe he's worried that Xayah will also flash. Just keep in mind, Xayah has Q and W. As long as he flashes the Q damage and still hits, I think no one can die here. So there was opportunities for Koi actually to win out the bot lane phase, and I think this is something that Fnatic can improve on. It's also like that the lane is relatively hard, and Fnatic was trying to find wins in a matchup where I think it's very hard to find wins into Zeri Lulu early on because they're so strong. But here we have the situation where Trimby just goes into the cancel and they kill Comp. And as you can see, this Vi spent so much time around bottom side but didn't really accomplish anything. She's still wasting time. She could be clearing her camps, she could be clearing her golems, she could be on her way to the Raptors now, she could have just farmed, but this is not the Malrang way, right? So it's just very rough. Malrang is the base off of this, and Wukong got a kill on Comp for very few reasons. I think here if Zeri got the base off and they can walk to lane, a lot of things could have played out better here for Koi. So I think Fnatic got away with a lot here in this setup, because Vi stealing the blue and Gromp would have been good. The trades on bottom side were favorable for Koi, but they just didn't execute well on the situation that played out. Here Trimby has a very big tempo swing and very big window. Trimby is just walking together with Razork, and they know that Vi is going to open on top side. Here Xayah will not get dove 2v2, so she's just taking it easy and having a good time. She still has flash and potions, and Zeri is slow pushing. So they are warding, and you know, I wonder if Trimby was spotted. I think he was. And Trimby just crosses into bottom side after they steal the blue buff. Perfectly fine to base because the distances are rather similar. You don't win so much time from crossing through mid, and at the same time you show yourself, so you lose pressure into top side if that's what you're looking for. We continue. The big decisive moment in this game was just the first Rift Herald that happened quite at a late timer. I think that the issue, as I mentioned in my rundown, is that Koi seem to not have an instinct for when they should force. I think here, for example, I'm not so sure why Larsen decides to walk all the way around. It's like Victor has a walking stick. Don't force him to walk such distances. It's quite bad. In reality here, I think that Shigenda can easily connect with his team, and I think that they should pull the Herald and play around Pixel. And as the enemy enters here, they can definitely do something good. But Larsen takes a safe route the moment he gets warded out, and Koi are not positioning for him. So it's not necessarily only Larsen's fault, but it's also Koi with the way they position. And now Victor is isolated and he's late, and FNATIC just take the opportunity to then engage. Malrang pushes forward and goes forward, but they are literally hard forcing in this fight when Victor is in no shape or form ready to connect. It's like here Vi ults in and he's trying to find as much value out of his aftershock, but this just ain't it. You know, this is of course a dream scenario for Syndra, and then everyone tries to walk in and Wukong gets a combo in, and it isn't the greatest. They also get the eye because Ivanchuk does a good job of stealing, and you see that CS advantage that Wukong has accrued due to the overtime expenditure of Vi on the bottom side is quite terrible. We don't need to talk about how bad this item purchase is with all of the updates and upgrades to Black Cleaver. I think it goes without saying, you guys are a viewer of this channel, so it means that you make smart decisions, so I barely need to mention that one. We fast forward a little bit more to look at the crucial moments. I think for the most part, I think that as the game continues and the game becomes more about taking unified decisions and being decisive, I think Koi just run out of steam and run out of gas, and FNATIC can take all the time in the world to set up the map and take it easy. We fast forward a little bit more. Let's find maybe the decisive team fight. This looks like it's it. Skorini gets stunned. Yet even though it's not the best fight for FNATIC, they're just 10k gold ahead, so it just doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Comp gets knocked into the wall by Oscarinin. And that's it. Okay. FNATIC continuing on the same trend as the previous week. Maybe they can make laning a little bit more precise on bot. Maybe in different situations they play against a stronger bot. The Lulu Zeri lane is something that can be very volatile. They ended up ahead after the big Rift Herald fight, and they stayed ahead, and Koi didn't really show anything that was exciting to me. I think FNATIC follow up, and even though he's getting a little bit of belly, but maybe he's just breathing into his stomach. You know, it's very good to breathe into your stomach. Maybe this is what he's doing. I'm just referencing this because Wunder told a story on stream about how the camera people for G2 told Caps to tuck in his stomach during a photo shoot, which is crazy, which is absolutely nuts. Alright, let's take a look at game number 4. Vitality versus G2. Vitality fans are in shambles. So they ban Draven, Maokai, and Nico, and I think Vitality is very happy that Yuumi, Vi, Milio was banned. I think one thing that Poppy does is the first pick Poppy is like a flex pick on blue side, right? And even when Gragas is locked in, still a flex, right? You have some options there. But I think the key thing is also for Vitality's case, I think they've tried to create scenarios where they can pick Rakan. If we scroll up a little bit more, if we look at previous games from Vitality, they did indeed try to set up Rakan cases. This one did not so much. Like here, maybe they could have picked Rakan, Wukong, drop AD and do something like that. Vitality, this is the moment, right? It's like LeBlanc, and then Rakan Annie gets picked. They pick Xayah. I think here in this position they would want to have Rakan, right? But nevertheless, they get Xayah, Rakan into Aphelios, Trundle, which is perfectly fine. I think that the Trundle is, they have counterplay, move speed, steroid. Aphelios is shown, and then Lulu is of course the answer into Xayah, Rakan. It's not as easy as playing Zeri Lulu, because Zeri has a dash and Lulu has ult to cancel. Very hard to get value as Rakan, as we saw before. But okay. Trundle is a champion that I love. I think Trundle is a beautiful, gorgeous champ. I think that Trundle just fits so well in the front-to-back team compositions that are appearing. Especially here, it's like they picked Azir on 4 and the enemy picks Orianna. I think the quality of Vitality's champions in how the team fights will play out is just way worse. Way worse. So yeah, Trundle is picked for the jungle into Papushka. And sure, maybe you can send Pompey into lane and then go like AP Gragas in the jungle, and then maybe it will be harder for Trundle. But the thing is, in terms of how the lane matchups are, it's not like Trundle is going to fight directly against Gragas. It isn't as black and white as you might want to make it seem. Like a jungle 1v1 matchup is, in a lot of cases, not relevant because the lane matchups come first. If Trundle is laning against Gragas in lane, then it's very different, right? It's like Trundle has sustain, can go Doran Shield, he gets HP back from minions dying around him. Mosquito. Yes. Okay, I caught him actually. Okay, let me just wipe my hand. The blood of my enemies. The blood of my enemies. Alright. So Trundle gets picked, right? And Trundle works so well still because it's a front-to-back composition. And here in this moment as well, like Orianna gets picked into Azir. I don't know if you can optimize your bans a little bit more here, because if Orianna is your best answer into Azir, you're not gonna have a good time, I think. This is also pre-Orianna buff. So I'm not a big fan here. I think the issue with this matchup is that Azir can pressure you in lane and trade well with you, and also if something slightly disrupts your balance and you have to burn flash, or the enemy can get a gank in, or they have a super prio or Sion prio, then Azir has such pressure on you with DR. He can always connect with you, and he can always R you and swoop you. So it's very, very tough. People are asking me what are Vitality's issues. I think that Photon is a little bit one-dimensional in how he finds success, and Kaiser is currently struggling super much. I think Bo is playing way too desperate, and he seems to be just a worse version of Malrang. Well, similar level of Malrang in terms of how hard he looks for things to occur in the game, and it seems like they're trying to get ahead in an unnatural way to save them from the pains and the weaknesses that they have. I think, like people, someone in chat mentioned Perks LeBlanc. I didn't think Perks played LeBlanc well last week. I think they got a cheap win against SK, and I think that the second game, the LeBlanc just didn't look good to me. It just didn't look good to me. Orianna is usually something that Perks goes to as a comfort choice. Sion gets picked on 5. I think here, even though, let's say they send Poppy top and Gragas gets sent jungle into Trundle and Sion lanes into Poppy, it's like Sion is really good into Poppy. So it's like he doesn't care about this matchup. It's not a good matchup in Sion. Like Poppy's gonna farm. I think that Sion is happy there. And then Trundle, sure, against Gragas, it's like Trundle's still gonna get value because he's into Poppy, right? The only strange thing about this game was that this Gragas went full tank for some reason instead of AP. Yeah, I'm not so sure what the solution is, because I don't know if the solution lies in what champions they pick. Let's just take a look at the game. So basically, first and foremost, like Bo, he mistimed his Q on the Raptors. That kind of feels like shit, you know? Ish, that's ugly. He went for red into golems and then looked to go for the invade. He wanted to avoid the ward. And then Papushka goes all the way around and goes towards the blue. Here he... Yike, he basically spots the earth here, the earth. How you want to play with Poppy even though you lose against Trundle 1v1? What you want to do against Trundle is chunk his HP and then you just run with Phase Rush. I am very surprised that Poppy, like, he did some James Bond shit here because he doesn't want to reveal his position, but I think he should just fucking trade with Yike, you know, look for him. This area is very easy to get people into the wall. I think this is how you can get some sense of urgency in this lane, like this position here. You can definitely like get some advantage here in terms of HP. Said Yike gets to kill that, heals to full. Now Grumpy is starting to be taken, he wards, and now when of course he spots the Trundle, he's walking around, he knows the timer of this ward and wants to look for this very desperate gank on bot. But the Aphelios Lulu when in terms of where the wave is, it's like Trundle is now full cleared. Now Trundle is full cleared. Trundle did 3 topside camps and Poppy did 3 bot side camps, and all of these topside camps are not taken. So if bot doesn't get value here from this gank, he is in a tough position. So it's like, I repeat, in regards to Poppy, I'm not so sure what the LEC teams have reached as a conclusion. It's like you can put Poppy flex. I think Poppy top is underrated. I think that's something to highlight. I think there's Poppy flex, right? Poppy Gragas, or like, I'm not so sure. It's like you pick Poppy first, it's very easy for the enemy to set up champions that are very good for you. So I'm not so sure here what happened in the lane phase because now Upset doesn't have potions, Rakan has no potions, and Aphelios is full HP and Lulu is low HP. It's like with the wave position, it's like I don't know if Vitality tried to manipulate the wave in a very certain way to make it bounce and then for Bo to be there for a gank angle at minute 3. I don't know what they tried to set up here, but obviously they are bleeding out of every crevice in their body right now in terms of how the lane played out. Aphelios Lulu is stronger than YamatoCannon in early lane phase, I think, of course, and you can maybe find angles where you hit W and all in, but usually if you heal out of range that and you chunk the Rakan to HP to 1 HP because you can hit with Lulu spells and so forth, usually like Aphelios Lulu can dominate. So I don't know how this conclusion happened. But the key thing here is like they're pushing for this gank and G2 just taking it easy, and now they show it's like G2 just want to maintain this wave position and never let Vitality to crash. I wonder as well here if they had awareness over the XP situation. So now Bo is fucked, bot lane is fucked. Because now Trundle is coming out on the map, he's level 4, 24 CS against 12. He's gonna be able to double crab, he can even pressure the topside camps without the base against Papushka. Like he can maybe pressure Orianna as he crosses, and he can create so many imbalances. And at the same time, G2's bot lane now, Aphelios has no HP, like Zaya has no HP, no potions, Rakan the same thing. This is an absolute disaster. Bo tries to find something on mid, he crosses towards the crab. I think here if Trundle pushed the crab into mid instead, I think that he could follow Poppy into topside and cause some serious damage here. But instead he just drops some wards to secure the bot side. And he sees that the Raptors are spawning, and then now of course he has full information about Poppy's clear and pathing. I thought here maybe Kaiser could W over and look for Q Ignite for lethal. He didn't look for that at all. He just is catching the wave bot and just taking CS. Alright. So for the majority of this game, right, like the key thing here is of course draft. There's a significant draft gap. I think this is a front to back against front to back, and Red Side is just better on every turn. And they have the champions for it. Now they have Mountain as well. We fast forward a little bit. We want to see the chain ganks on mid. Berkovic. So mid wave. Trundle very strong in this position. Gragas is trying to undermine this, but he decides to change his mind. I thought this opportunity could have been like interesting if Gragas went all the way around and gave up the neutral. I think that here, if he's behind these guys now, it could have been a very good play, but Vitality just didn't want to pull the trigger. I think Gragas was just too scared of dying. Now we continue. I didn't understand here, you know, after this play occurred, you know, at some point, Perks just needed to stop. I don't know where the fuck the guy is going. Right? The bow stun didn't land into the wall, and this is just ugly, because on top of this, he over postures, and then he also dies to Aphelios shurikens as he flashes over the wall. And what I mentioned before, having no flash against Azir as Orianna, you're gonna have a rough time. Trundle secures the Herald, and you can even argue that this game is already over. Broken Blade is defending. They had a clean swap with Aphelios. So I got some platings in this situation, so it isn't the end of days, but considering they got kill and flash on mid, full control top side, and also the Herald, depending on how much value they can get out of it, they are very happy here. Yeah, there was definitely a jungle diff here. The gank bot was way too desperate. At least Bo managed to recover somewhat. He's 6, he's 7 to 8. He isn't completely useless, but there is a Divine Thunder in the pocket of Trundle, so obviously any fight they take is going to be losing. This was an interesting play, I think, from blue side team. They get a wave crashing and Kaiser's posturing to E and then R. They're trying to look for a play. Poppy's coming, and then the TP on the final golem. I thought when I saw this live, I was like, they don't really need Orianna, but I didn't realize actually she TP'd here. Keep in mind though that Orianna's TPing here and she's losing a lot of mid-wave minions. Now they find the lethal on Hansama, his flash and cleanse, which I think is crazy that he's not actually he's playing Ghost. I think it's crazy that he's not playing cleanse against Rakan. I think it's a little bit disrespectful. But to be fair, Kaiser this game, he didn't do the appropriate combos, I think, in terms of trying to pursue engages, because a lot of Rakan players against Lulu specifically, they hold their W until they're melee, and they look to actively engage with their teammates instead of engaging with themselves, where they use E to push it forward, and then R, and then CC, and then melee range W, because it's so much harder to actually cancel as Lulu. Do you think Perks is a bad player? I think he's just had a dip in form, he should be given time, but some people want him dropped. Norris answered the question. I think that type of conversation is completely irrelevant, right? I think if you go into next off-season, I think that you should look for options, right? Definitely. But in terms of them being in the season now, there's not even a conversation. You keep Perks, you stick with this roster, you go all the way, right? There's nothing that you can do or find in the pool of players that is going to change anything. So the conversation is not about this at all, right? When it comes to the next year, Vitality obviously need to rebuild and start from scratch, you know, because this project is a complete failure. And you need to analyze which pieces you want to salvage, right? If I look at this, I would probably look to Photon and Upset as the two players I would try to maintain and salvage, because I think, and then replace the other pieces. That's my take. It's like, obviously Vitality have good players, but it's just not functioning. I don't know if it's a problem in coaching staff or what they do in scrims or whatever, you know. It's like some of these things that we just see on our screen and how they're trying to band-aid solve every week with something else. It's just, they're digging it's very obvious that they don't know how to win as a group, you know. There you see it, right? It's like Kaiser W just get cancelled. Like, imagine if Kaiser just holds his spell a little bit longer, right? He can just hold his spells a little bit longer, you know. He takes it easy, you know. He charms first instead of Wing, right? It could have been big here. This is an example. Let's take a look at the rest of it. It's like here, if you imagine he just walks forward and charms, and then holds his W. And then if Lulu just ults without him using W, then he can reach, right? It makes a very big difference. Very big difference. That's why I thought that Hansama is greedy for not playing cleanse, right? They don't have Orianna ult here, and Aphelios, even though he died, he managed to get a lot of damage in. Yeah, I have not been impressed with Bo in a long time. It's just that I think that when you import a player, a Chinese player, the expectation is that, you know, he'll always carry his own weight, because obviously there's a lot of intangibles that are tough to measure there, you know, in terms of communication, in terms of how you manage your team. It's like you need to be able to carry the shit out of yourself. You need to be really, really impactful to the point where some of these negatives matter a lot less, you know? It's very important. I think Bo had some good performances in both winter and spring's regular season, but as playoffs came around, it looked worse and worse. I feel like Bo is losing a lot of the edge he had coming into the split. All right, let's look at the decisive fight of the game. Like the game is already decided, so it's not really the right phrasing, but we'll just take a look at this. I think we looked at the most crucial points. Of course, the Rift Herald in the early game, and then G2 just had the better composition. Right. Game number 5, Astralis vs Mad Lions. Astralis also suffering from identity crisis, right? Milio, LeBlanc, Yumi, Sejuani, Nico, Lucian. I was surprised to see them being the ones picking the Vi. I thought they were going to first pick Xayah here when Vi is in the picture. I think that as Astralis, this is a team that should be very happy facing Vi, in my opinion. I don't think Vi can do a lot early game, and I think that they need to be in a position to really leverage their early game power to gain advantages. I think it's a really, really big deal, and an advantage that, like, this is how Astralis should win games. I think they should first pick Xayah. Kobe should always play Xayah, and then match Xayah together with the melee support, whether that's Rakan, Nautilus, Blitzcrank, whatever the fuck you want. So they first pick Vi, enemy goes Xayah Rakan, which is dream for Mad Lions. They're very happy to play Xayah Rakan, especially if it's into melee matchups. Kai'Sa Nautilus is not winning against Xayah Rakan. This is just something that you picked to match in the past, and the enemy goes Wukong. So already in my mind, it's like you have this full-on committal comp via Kai'Sa Nautilus, and the enemy is playing Xayah Rakan Wukong. I feel like this is so winning already, 1, 2, 3. I don't know how these 1, 2, 3 should do anything at all against these 3. I think this is very, very hard. In a world where you can play like Lulu Zeri here, oh, I would say it's good. But they don't. Because they just want to play melee for Jungkook. Renekton then gets banned, which is a very strong blind pick, and they ban K'Sante of Chasey, and then they ban Gwen for the potential 5 pick. Not sure why they ban Gwen, honestly. Not sure. I don't see why Blueside would ever blind pick Gwen, especially if they're 4th picking Gragas. Gwen ban is kind of odd. And he gets banned. Niski Gragas, classic. Don't let Chasey play this champ. I think that should be a rule that everyone who has Chasey on your team and Niski on your team follow. This is a fake flex. They should just go mid every time. Akali gets locked in, and Akali static shift is going to be played into Gragas, which is like okayish, and then Jax. So he's picking Jax because, oh, enemy Gragas is going to go mid. I just want to have a champion that goes in and has a good time, but here Poppy value is just too damn high. Right. Did he really lock Jax? I thought he played Sion. This is wrong. He played Sion. Leaguepedia is just wrong, I think. Let's see if I'm crazy. He played Sion. Yeah. What the fuck? Alright. So he picked Sion. Alright, so he has Sion and then Poppy gets picked. If it was Jax, it would have been way worse, because then Poppy value would be through the roof. So they pick Sion, which is better. because Poppy would just completely 1v9 the game if this was a Jax, right? So the big Sion, enemy goes Poppy. Poppy is not the greatest into Sion, but you don't care because the enemy already has Vi, Nautilus, Kai'Sa, Akali, you get Poppy value. I think this is a very tough game to play for Akali. Some of the call people in members, some of the members in the Nutsack said it's fine to play here, right? I think it's like okay into Wukong. I think it's one of the better mid lanes into Wukong. I think Xayah, Rakan, it's like you have counterplay into Xayah, you can play around the feathers. I think Rakan is fine, Gragas is fine. It's not terrible, but I guess inherently what I'm trying to say is like, I think Akali just is terrible. So he's just going Akali static shift because leader is they're trying to create compositions that are all in and all forward, which is the identity that the strat is identified by. But it's like playing Akali into Rakan, Poppy, Gragas. Doesn't sound like a good time, honestly. So leader went no fleet footwork. And here this is a very great example of teams just not playing around static shift at all. Like, if you're not gonna play around static shift, just don't fucking play it. And there's teams that accepted that. They ban LB, they don't play LB, G2 didn't play LB, they just accepted, yo, let's not fucking play this. This is not us. Let's not practice playing static shift because it's gonna get nerfed next patch anyway when we play. So let's just save time and play it for what it is. Right? Astralis managed to... Yeah, this was a very strange Rift Herald situation, honestly. Let me just take a step back, because Xayah pushes bot, and Kai'Sa's already on location. You see the W flying. My lines are hitting Herald, and I think Xayah should just hit bot, because she's too late for anything. It's like they've been hitting this Herald for quite some time, and the plan here for Mad Lions is to take this shit and peace out. If they do it too slow, then it was just a bad play in the first place, and they should look to reset it. Either you finish and you're out, or you pull and reset it and buy Xayah time to hit. This is how you have to play it. Xayah instead is walking across the deserts like Moses. Takes her 40 years to get all the way here. And she's not a part of this fight. Kai'Sa gets Poppy ulted out, but they're just comboing Vi and Sion. Very straightforward, and they get the Rift Herald steal. This was a pretty decent gold swing, right? This was a very, very big inaccuracy for Mad Lions, and SK managed to, Astralis managed to get ahead. So Xayah could have hit platings, and here always, it's good to leash the Herald to see how the enemy reacts. But if you can't kill it on time, you just pull the Herald, it resets, and the enemy wasted a lot of time. We continue. At some point, static shiv of Kai'Sa is finished, and also static shiv of Akali is finished. So at this point, how do you want to play it? You want to always... You know what makes LeBlanc so good is that when she pushes, she actually walks into mid and pokes and is impactful when the enemy is catching. Akali not so much, right? So when Akali walks into mid, there's very few cases where she actually has value walking into mid, because she's not a ranged champion. Jace is not a good example. When he's prio, he walks into mid and just boof, 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 right? He just shoots atomic bombs. Let's continue. Now the Shiv is finished, and Poppy, like the lane assignment's pretty good here. Poppy should be losing against Akali because she has full armor, right? And the static Shiv and the Q and the R, everything is magic damage. She should chip away at this pool of HP. Static Shiv should be able to clear the whole wave. And it's a good time. It's a good time. And now Sion's in the top wave, clearing it. Finn is doing a good job. This is a very good lane assignment, but for some reason, Younghoon just wants to ruin the whole game. I praise Younghoon a lot. I praise Younghoon a lot, but this ain't it. You know, here you want to keep Akali in the bot, and you want to play through mid into bot and see what you can do. You know, play for camps, take it easy, but instead they hard force, and then you have this Akali walking into a fight where Nautilus is already dead and Poppy has TP to match. Very bad. And leader. Now the game is just over. So the main thing, right, is now every moment onward, it's like Akali walking into this fight, TPing in, it's just terrible. Every time Akali opens on the map, she should open on side. She shouldn't be under threat to be under threat to be killed. I think it's very important that she opens on side and pushes, but for the majority of the game, leader's just opening on mid, opening on mid, opening on mid. Rift Herald is spawning. We want to fight every time, fight every time. Why on earth are we not... like, if you want to play like this, just fucking buy Proto Build. This is not what static shift is for. You're just opening on mids, opening on mids, opening on mids. You know, this is tricky, of course, because Gragas is TP and is into bottom side, so Astralis are just trying to, you know, play onto one side. But you don't necessarily need to open on mid, because Kaiser can always be on the wave and clear everything with static shift and so forth. I think it's kind of weird that Kaiser hovered all the way, but she doesn't have R, so I can understand it to some degree. Once again, we're opening on mid. Q over the wall. 113 gets one shot. Mad Lions have full control. And this game is pretty much done and dusted. Done and dusted. Six, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I was counting down for Wukong ult. That's the only reason this fight looked remotely close. Alright. Predictions? Alright, tomorrow, 25th June, join me on my co-view, as per usual, ladies and gentlemen. EXO is Team BDS. I think Team BDS is going to win that one. Astralis was Team Vitality. Bangers of bangers. Both teams on 1-3 score lines. It's a very tough one to predict, honestly. It's like... both teams are suffering from serious identity crisis. They're suffering from play crisis. There is serious like problems with both teams. I don't think necessarily anyone's going to be winning. I don't think anyone's going to be winning. My mind wants to say Astralis. My mind wants to just say Astralis here. Like they played against Mad Lions today, and I think Astralis' bot lane is just better right now. I think Jonghoon is just performing way better than Kaiser. So I'm gonna lean Astralis here. Team Heretics versus Koi. I think Koi is just lifeless, honestly. Completely lifeless. They have some decent lane phases sometimes, you know, mid and top. But it doesn't lead to anything, and I think that Team Heretics is just going to leverage Yanko's gap here into a win, and that's it. I think that Team Heretics played pretty bad today, like Evi completely ran it down, I think, and I think Mercer too, which is exactly what I mentioned before, right, in my rundown. Like, I don't think that Evi and Mercer are just good enough to elevate this team to the next level, and I think that Flacket and Vitheo are like decent players, but they're not like superstars that are gonna like carry a whole team to the front lines. But at least they have Jankos that can, you know, Jankos is a championship caliber player in Europe for sure. Remember, I said in Europe, because LPL and LCK is just, I mean, LPL is on a whole nother level, and LCK is above LEC and LCS for sure. D2 versus SK. I think SK is going to make a resurgence here. Like, I saw something in my serial. Of course, I'm joking. Cheese was going to smoke him. Mad Lions versus FNATIC. Now, this is a very interesting one. Very interesting one. I think that the biggest test here for FNATIC will be, it's like how well can Oscarinin and Razor actually hold up, because I think those are the inconsistent forces. these are the inconsistent forces. I think if Razork and Oscarin have good games, I think that the strengths of Humanoid can show, but I'm not ready to say that FNATIC is going to beat Mad Lions. I don't think they're mature enough to be like super headstrong throughout, because I think that Mad Lions can get very scrappy. They can win from winning positions, losing positions. They're very scrappy and they're very relentless. I think they play together well. They make some mistakes here and there, but to punish those mistakes you need to be very sharp. And on the flip side as well, Mad Lions is very good at punishing mistakes. So I'm gonna go towards Mad Lions here. I think FNATIC need a little bit more time. I think it's going to be a very competitive match though, and I think FNATIC has some chances here. Very good chances. I still think that FNATIC is the third best team in the league so far. So that's it. That's it.